Good evening and welcome to just a few minutes later than usual, Scotland at 7 here on Broadcasting Scotland. My name's Kenny McBride. A series of government ads extolling the virtues of universal credit and purporting to bust negative myths about the flagship Conservative welfare policy has been banned because it is misleading. In an embarrassing indictment of the policy before next month's general election, the Advertising Standards Authority found that a claim that people moved into work faster on universal credit than under the old system could not be substantiated. Two other claims, that job centres will pay in advance to people who need it and that rent can be paid directly to landlords under universal credit, were also found to be unsubstantiated. The adverts, part of a £225,000 Department for Work and Pensions campaign to detoxify universal credit, appeared in print in the Metro newspaper and on its website, as well as on the Mail Online in May and June. They attracted 44 complaints, including from the Motor Neuron Disease Association, the Disability Benefits Consortium, and the anti-poverty charity Zacchaeus 2000 Trust, who have called for the DWP to apologise in light of the ASA ruling. The Z2K Chief Executive, Raji Hunjan, also demanded an investigation into working practices at the department. If it has misled the public on universal credit, its flagship policy, what else is it misleading us on? Hunjan said. The next government must engage with the compelling evidence that points to the harm universal credit is causing, leaving many people reliant on food banks and others destitute. Enough is enough. The DWP's 9-week advertising campaign launched with an advert wrapped around the Metro newspaper and a 4-page feature inside. The headline on the advertorial said, "Universal Credit Uncovered," and it presented a series of myths followed by facts, such as myth, you have to wait 5 weeks to get any money on universal credit. Fact, if you need money, your job centre will urgently pay you in advance. The 5-week waiting time for a first payment has been one of the most controversial elements of universal credit, having been criticised by MPs of all parties, campaigners and the National Audit Office, and has also been blamed for an increase in food bank usage. The ASA adjudged the web page hosted by Mail Online and Metro.co.uk to be in breach of rules stating that marketing communications must be obviously identifiable as such, because a label identifying it as DWP content was too small. Jonathan Blades, a parliamentary co-chair of the DBC, a coalition of more than 100 charities, said, "The DWP must apologise for its actions and concentrate on fixing universal credit. They need to stop messing around with misleading adverts and focus on reform, like scrapping the 5-week wait." Universal Credit, which is running 6 years behind schedule, rolls 6 benefits into one single monthly payment. A recent estimate suggested millions of claimants would be up to £1,000 worse off when they move on to it. Labour, which has pledged to abolish universal credit, seized on the ASA ruling. The Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Margaret Greenwood said, "It is shameful that this Conservative government chose to waste thousands of pounds on misleading ads about universal credit, rather than ending the harsh, punitive policies that are causing such severe hardship." In election news, the Tories' election campaign was marred by the resignation of a Mirror, insensitive comments about the victims of the Grenfell fire, and a doctored video of Keir Starmer released by the party. Boris Johnson had called a snap December 12th election in a bid to break the Brexit deadlock that he says has paralysed Britain for more than 3 years and had started to undermine confidence in the world's 5th largest economy. But just an hour after meeting the Queen to formally begin the election campaign, Johnson's Minister for Wales, Alan Cairns, resigned after being accused of lying about his knowledge about an aide who allegedly sabotaged a rape trial. Speaking outside Number 10, Boris Johnson said that the Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn would bring yet more turmoil with fresh referendums on EU membership and Scottish independence. Johnson said Corbyn hated wealth and was thus like Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, who sent millions to their death in labour camps. Corbyn said such remarks were nonsense that the super rich came up with to avoid paying more tax. Earlier today, Conservative Party Chairman James Cleverly spent the morning defending distributing a doctored video clip of Labour rival Keir Starmer instead of touting the election campaign launch. Another prominent Conservative, Jacob Rees-Mogg, apologised on Tuesday after he suggested that victims of the blaze at London's Grenfell Tower should have used common sense to ignore firefighters' instructions to stay in the burning building. Rees-Mogg is normally one not to shy away from the media lens, but following the claim that it would have been common sense to ignore fire brigade advice and flee the tower block fire, a statement that prompted outrage, he went uncharacteristically quiet after making an apology. Matters worsened for him when the prospective Tory MP Andrew Bridgen clumsily defended his colleague's comments by suggesting that Rees-Mogg was cleverer than the fire service chiefs who had ordered the residents to stay put. What he is actually saying is that he would have made a better decision than the authority figures who gave that advice, Bridgen told BBC presenter Evan Davis. Asked by Davis if Rees-Mogg was implying that he was cleverer than most people, Bridgen replied, "But we want very clever people running the country, don't we, Evan? That's a byproduct of what Jacob said, and that is why he is in a position of authority." And in Scotland, as the House of Commons dissolves and the general election campaign formally begins, SNP leader Nicola Sturgeon has urged Remain voters to unite and back the SNP to help Scotland escape from Brexit. In an open letter to Remain voters across Scotland, Ms Sturgeon said that she understood why seemingly endless Westminster chaos had left voters feeling scunnered, but that this was all the more reason to come together to take Scotland's future out of Boris Johnson's hands and put it in Scotland's hands. The text of the letter is as follows. On December 12th, you have a chance to escape from Brexit and to ensure Scotland's future is in Scotland's hand, not Boris Johnson's or any other UK Prime Minister's. After the last few years, I can fully understand if you feel scunnered. Everyone is fed up with this Westminster mess. Scotland didn't vote for this Tory government and we didn't vote for Brexit. But the Tories don't care about Scotland and are dragging us out of the EU against our will. The Westminster system has shown itself to be broken. This isn't some academic debate. Brexit will profoundly affect you, your family and your community. It will harm our economy and our living standards, and it will limit the opportunities of our young people. It also poses a real threat to public services such as our NHS. And under Boris Johnson's plan, Brexit will not be done. He hasn't even started trade talks yet, so we face years of more Brexit wrangling, with the very real prospect of a no-deal crash-out because of hard Tory demands. Scotland is an enormously wealthy country with human and natural resources that most other countries can only dream of. I believe that our best future would be as an independent country, though I understand that not everyone shares that view. But what I do know is that we can only realise our enormous potential as a nation if we escape from Brexit and decide for ourselves what kind of country we want to be. That's why your vote in this election is so important. If we sit back and do nothing, our future will be decided for us by Boris Johnson and by governments we didn't vote for. We must come together in this election and make Scotland's voice heard, and the best way to do that is to vote SNP. In every seat in Scotland held by the Tories, it is the SNP who is in second place, so only the SNP can stop the Tories and deprive them of a majority. So my message to you is this: don't sit back and let the Tories decide your future for you. Stand up and be counted. Vote SNP on December 12th to escape Brexit and put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands. A Labour government would spend £10 billion building £120,000 new council and socially rented homes over a decade, Richard Leonard has claimed today. Excuse me, sorry. The Scottish Labour leader formally launched his party's campaign in Scotland for the Westminster election with the commitment. He claimed the house building proposals, to be funded from Labour's promised National Transformation Fund, will help end homelessness once and for all. Speaking ahead of the campaign launch in Glasgow, Mr Leonard said, a UK Labour government would invest £70 billion into Scotland's public services and economy. And today I can announce that at the very heart of that, £10 billion will be invested from Labour's new National Transformation Fund to build 120,000 council and social homes in Scotland over the next 10 years. Labour will tackle Scotland's housing crisis. We will provide a home for everyone, and we will end homelessness once and for all in Scotland. The house building programme would generate almost 50,000 jobs, he added, as he insisted Labour is the only alternative to having Boris Johnson back in Downing Street. Meanwhile, the SNP has called on the Westminster parties to match the party's ambitious policies on housing at the election, after a new report revealed that over the last decade, Scotland has delivered more affordable homes than other UK countries on a per-person basis. The report for the Office for National Statistics found that 60,000 affordable homes were delivered between April 2017 and March 2018, with the best available data suggesting Scotland comparatively supplied the most affordable homes per person, 16 homes per 10,000 people. In contrast, England delivered just 8.5 houses per 10,000 people, and Labour-run Wales provided 7.4 per 10,000. Pressure over the Tories' failures on housing has mounted after it was revealed yesterday that the Tory government has failed to build a single new starter home, despite pledging in their 2015 election manifesto to build 200,000 by the end of 2020. SNP housing spokesperson Alison Thewlis said, "Under the SNP government, Scotland is building more affordable housing than any other nation in the UK, with around double the number per person than England and Wales. The Westminster parties must match the SNP's ambitious housing policies at this election if they are to have a hope of playing catch-up with our record of delivery. While the Tories and Labour fall behind, the SNP government has built 87,000 new affordable homes since 2007 and is on target to deliver another 50,000 affordable homes by 2021. The SNP will go even further by assisting first-time buyers to get on the property ladder with loans of up to £25,000 through a new pilot scheme backed by £150 million of investment. As the Office of National Statistics report shows, under the SNP, Scotland is delivering more affordable homes and has the highest proportion of homes in the social sector. This must be a wake-up call for the Westminster parties who have failed families and first-time buyers for decades. Only a vote for the SNP can enable Scotland to escape Brexit and put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands, not Boris Johnson's." In London, climate change activists Extinction Rebellion won a legal challenge in London's High Court today against a police-imposed blanket ban on protests during its autumn uprising in the capital in October. The court ruled that separate gatherings, even if coordinated by one organisation, could not be defined as a single public assembly, and the blanket ban was therefore unlawful. Extinction Rebellion targeted major companies, government departments, and the transport network during its action. Hundreds of Extinction Rebellion protesters may sue the Metropolitan Police for unlawful arrest after the High Court quashed an order banning the group's protests in London last month. In a judgment handed down this morning, Mr Justice Dingemans and Mr Justice Chamberlain said the Section 14 order imposed during Extinction Rebellion's autumn uprising in October was unlawful. He also went on to say separate gatherings separated both in time and by many miles, even if coordinated under the umbrella of one body, are not a public assembly within the meaning of the Act. The Extinction Rebellion autumn uprising, intended to be held from 14th to the 19th of October, was not therefore a public assembly. Therefore, the decision to impose the condition was unlawful because there was no power to impose it under the Act. However, the judges noted there were powers within the Act that might be used lawfully to control future protests, which are deliberately designed to take police resources to breaking point. The case was brought by 7 prominent supporters of Extinction Rebellion: Jenny Jones, Caroline Lucas and Ellie Chowns of the Green Party, Labour MPs Clive Lewis and David Drew, the Labour activist Adam Allnutt, and the Guardian environment writer George Monbiot. Jones said, "This is a historic win because for the first time we've challenged the police on overstepping their powers and we've won. It's great." Ms Chowns, who was arrested in Trafalgar Square just after the Met imposed the blanket Section 14, said she would be taking legal advice on whether to now sue the force for unlawful arrest. She said, "I think it's very important that we've won because the police actions were both disproportionate and also very dangerous." She said curtailing free protest was a slippery slope. Kevin Blow, a coordinator of the Network for Police Monitoring, who was in court to see the judgment handed down, said that although it was a good decision by the court, it left the police with serious questions to answer. "Someone really needs to be held accountable for the decisions that they made," he said. Back in Scotland, exiled Catalan former Education Minister Professor Clara Ponsatí will now not have to hand herself into police this week following glaring contradictions in her arrest warrant, according to her lawyer Amr Anwar. She had been due to hand herself into police tomorrow. In a statement, Anwar said, "It is the norm for the European arrest warrant to be checked for accuracy before being passed to the state from which extradition is being sought." Recently, failures by Spain to follow EAW procedures led to delays on the warrant being accepted by Belgium for the extradition of former President Carles Puigdemont. Earlier this morning, the translated warrant for Clara arrived, and clarity is now being sought by the UK authorities on the warrant from Spain. Over the last 24 hours, we have been translating the Spanish warrant in our possession issued by senior judge Pablo Llarena. There appear to be glaring contradictions contained in the rambling warrant, stretching to some 59 pages, which jumps from rebellion to sedition. Whilst Clara Ponsatí is accused of sedition, she only is briefly mentioned on 2 pages, with no clarity as to her role. We note the warrant begins with the activities of the independence movement in December 2012. However, Clara Ponsatí only returned to become Education Minister on July 14, 2017. The warrant has now been returned to Spain seeking clarification, which means Professor Clara Ponsatí will not be appearing at the Edinburgh Police Office on Thursday 7th November, and the court hearing is cancelled. Provisionally, it is expected that Clara will hand herself into the authorities on Thursday the 14th of November at 11 a.m, but we will provide an update as soon as this is confirmed. This shambolic, arrogant attempt at extradition by Spain should be a source of deep embarrassment to them. This is now Spain's 3rd attempt to extradite Clara, and they stand accused of abusing the European arrest warrant process. We are instructed to robustly defend Clara in what she claims to be a judicially motivated act of vengeance against Catalan politicians. Our legal team is also monitoring closely the hardline statements by President Pedro Sanchez, where he boasts of controlling the public prosecutor in the extradition process. Such statements make a total mockery of the Spanish state's claim to have separation of powers. We are putting politicians such as Pedro Sanchez on notice that we will not hesitate to cite them as witnesses to our courts to answer questions on their alleged interference with the Spanish judiciary, lack of impartiality, and any political motivation over the extradition process. In the Netherlands, Dutch police found 16 migrants, including 4 children, in a lorry that was about to board a ferry at a Dutch port headed for Britain. The migrants, who were of various nationalities, were found on Wednesday after the driver told border guards at the port of IJmuiden that he had heard sounds in the trailer of the lorry, said a statement by the Dutch Royal Military Police, which oversees borders. The truck was carrying car parts, among which the foreigners had hidden themselves, the police force said in a statement. The driver, aged 45, who is from Turkey, has been arrested on suspicion of human trafficking, it said. The migrants included 4 children, 1 woman and 11 men. The discovery came after 39 people were found dead in a refrigerated truck in Essex last week, again laying bare the human costs of irregular migration routes through Europe. In Scotland, Police Scotland's commitment to providing local divisions with additional specialist support over Bonfire Night has resulted in a reduction in firework-related crime across the country. Operation Moonbeam was launched in 2018 following unprecedented levels of disorder throughout Scotland, including a rise in incidents where police and other emergency services were targeted. Public order resources were devoted to each region of the country and were able to be called on by commanders to support conventional policing teams should serious criminality involving fireworks arise. A significant reduction in offending was observed in 2018, and a similar downward trend has now been seen this year. On Monday, 4th November 2019, a total of 73 firework-related incidents were reported in Scotland, which is down from 164 the previous year. During this time, Moonbeam resources were deployed to assist local teams, primarily in the west of the country, in dealing with a number of low-level antisocial behaviour offences. Throughout Tuesday the 5th of November, Police Scotland received 667 reports of incidents involving fireworks. Last year's Bonfire Night saw 738 calls made to police. Assistant Chief Constable Kenny MacDonald, commander for Operation Moonbeam, said, "While I'm delighted that firework-related incidents have fallen across the country in comparison to the previous year, I want to assure our communities that we will not become complacent in our efforts to reduce these incidents further next year." While the overwhelming majority of people in Scotland choose to enjoy Bonfire Night at an approved display or responsibly discharge fireworks at their own homes, there is still a worrying minority of individuals who think it is acceptable to use fireworks to cause disorder on our streets. Let me make it clear, this is not acceptable and will not be tolerated. I am pleased to report that we have received no reports of police officers or other emergency service personnel being injured over the past couple of evenings. However, there have still been some instances where police vehicles, fire engines and ambulances have been targeted. A number of arrests for the various incidents which took place have already been made, and local policing teams will now progress inquiries to identify those involved in firework-related crime. We are committed to keeping the public, our emergency service colleagues, and of course our own officers safe. Measures to cut the number of college students failing to complete their courses are to be rolled out nationwide. A new college quality improvement hub will focus on reducing the full-time further education withdrawal rate of 25%. This follows a successful 2-year pilot that saw an increase in students' completions and identified some of the reasons why students decide to leave early, including complex personal issues, funding, or not initially choosing the right course. The hub will also enhance professional development opportunities for school and college staff, improve collaboration among colleges, and provide access to practical tools and information from other successful projects. Speaking at the College Development Network conference in Glasgow, Further Education Minister Richard Lochhead said, "I want to substantially reduce the current 25% dropout rate in colleges so that more Scottish college students not just enrol but stay the course." Although significant attainment challenges still persist, the pilot showed that targeting specific courses and cohorts with concerted efforts to ensure they stay does make a difference. In the wake of the pilot's success, I have now tasked CDN to establish this new hub to offer a tailored service to help the college sector cut the number of those leaving early, improve attainment levels, and raise overall performance. This represents a new partnership approach to quality improvement in Scotland's colleges. Ultimately, the aim is to ensure more students emerge with a college qualification that will help them to fulfil their potential. Scottish Funding Council data showed 13,443 withdrawals from full-time further education study at colleges in 2016-17. 9 in 10 people who used Scotland's new employment support service in its first year felt that they were treated with dignity and respect. Fair Start Scotland helps people find work and supports those who have struggled to find a job that meets their needs. A total of 10,063 people started using the service in its first 12 months. Reports show 9 in 10 of those who used the service felt they were treated with dignity and respect. 78% felt the service offered support to improve their general quality of life and well-being. 80% of participants felt they had a choice about the type of support they received. Fair Work Minister Jamie Hepburn said, "When we designed Fair Start Scotland, we wanted it to be voluntary, flexible and responsive to people's needs, and, most important of all, based on the principles of dignity and respect. There is now strong evidence that this approach is working and that Fair Start Scotland is having a positive impact. I have met many people who have used the service over the last year, and it's clear that the majority hugely value the support they receive. We will continue to learn and make improvements to the service, working closely with our partners and those who are using our services to make sure we provide the best possible support to the largest number of people we can." Fair Start Scotland is Scotland's first fully devolved employment support service, which became operational in April 2018. It aims to provide support to people who want help to find and stay in work. And the world's first fully electric gritter is to be deployed on the Queensferry crossing this winter. The 18-ton vehicle will join a 213-strong winter fleet to battle snow and ice across the trunk road network, Transport Secretary Michael Matheson announced today. He said, "Our teams have worked hard throughout the year to ensure we are ready when difficult winter conditions set in. We can't prevent the weather, but we can make sure we're as well prepared as possible. While last winter was relatively benign, particularly in comparison to the year before, we have still learned lessons from that period. Improvements have been put in place to ensure we are as well prepared as we can be, and we are trialling some innovative new technology to see if we can make our fleet more environmentally friendly. As always, the Traffic Scotland mobile site, my.trafficscotland.org, is an excellent source of up-to-date information on the Trunk Road network. The @TrafficScotland Twitter page is regularly updated, and the ever-popular Gritter tracker is back again this year. Transport Scotland officials will continue to work with Police Scotland, the Met Office and other partner organisations to ensure we have a joined-up approach to keep Scotland moving this winter. Lancashire-based NRG Fleet Services, which supplied the Gritter, said it would be tested for the first time on Queensferry Crossing and the adjacent Forth Road Bridge used by buses and taxis. Chairman Sid Sadiq said the electric spreader was based on technology already in use in electric bin lorries in Manchester and London. He said the level of interest in Scotland in this is immense, particularly because of climate change. NRG will also trial electric lorries with 11 Scottish councils in January, including for refuse collection and food delivery. Mr. Sadiq said the electric spreader has a range of some 150 miles compared to around 300 miles for traditional diesel-powered ones, but had similar overall costs. Its batteries take 4 hours to recharge. There will also be trials of new weather stations and sensors on the M8 and pre-wetted salt in lower concentrations on the A835 to Ullapool in the North West Highlands, following its widespread use in Austria. And finally, days after bowing out as Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow has described Brexit as the biggest mistake Britain has made since the Second World War. Bercow, who was persistently accused of bias by Brexit-backing MPs during his term as Speaker, gave a valedictory speech to the Foreign Press Association, revealing himself to be a Remainer. I don't think it helps the UK. Brexit is the biggest mistake of this country after the war. I respect the Prime Minister, Johnson, but Brexit doesn't help us. It's better to be part of the power bloc, Bercow said, according to the journalist Antonella Guerrera of La Repubblica, who attended the event in London. However, Bercow rejected the idea that he had blocked Brexit, insisting it was Parliament that had prevented Britain from leaving before now, not me. The former Speaker is stepping down as an MP after representing the constituency of Buckingham for the Conservatives since 1997. He plans to publish a book about his life next year and is expected to join the lucrative after-dinner speaking circuit. Mr. Bercow, who has long been accused of being pro-Remain by Brexiteers, admitted that he thought Brexit was the biggest mistake of the country after the war. With a general election taking place in December, Tory Mr. Bercow refused to reveal which party he will vote for and predicted that Brexit won't be resolved anytime soon. And that is all we've got time for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. As we always tell you, though, making TV programmes is an expensive business. If you're able to help in any way, please do go to broadcastingscotland.scot/register to sign up as a supporter. Your £5 a month makes all the difference to what we can do here at Broadcasting Scotland. If you can't afford it, though, don't worry. We will always remain free to view. But thank you again for joining us. This has been Scotland at 7. My name's Kenny McBride. Thanks for joining us and goodbye.